All right, guys, welcome back to the vlog. Welcome to the new year, 2024. We want to do a recap of our year last year and kind of talk about everything we did last year because it was a cool year for us. It was an exciting year. So we have a little list.
Dan made bullet points for us because he's very prepared.
I'm ready to go.
So first thing on our list is the Toronto Motorcycle Super Show. That my chair is squeaking. So we did that in early January?
Very beginning of January. It was like the 5th, 6th, 7th of January.
Yeah, that was super fun. So that was probably our biggest show in Canada. That's what it is. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so that's like
how did we get involved in that?
Through Crooked Clubhouse.
Right.
Highway Heathens.
Thanks, guys.
We were doing a bunch of those shows the year before, and we got invited along to the Toronto Motorcycle Super Show. January in the winter here, we got nothing to do, so it's an indoor event. There was Highway Heathen Stunt Show, the Wall of Death was there.
That was cool.
Treadwell, our buddy Treadwell Clothing, our mechanic, Champion Cycle was there. Mm-hmm. We set up a booth, and then we had the Wobbly Pops bikes, Mark and Nick's bikes were in there, and it was just like a spot to hang out for the weekend, and we vlogged it, and yeah, it was fun. It's
just a chance to still stay involved in the community, right? Because it just kind of goes dark during the winter and everybody just gets involved in their own projects. So it's nice to bring the community, back together.
But yeah, super fun show.
Yeah. And, thanks everyone who came out too. You always gotta thank them.
So the next kind of big thing we did on the channel was the El Diablo build series. And I was saying, Matt was talking to our mechanic Dan from Champion at the motorcycle show about what he was going to do to that bike, and it snowballed from there because what you started with.
This build all started, at least conversation started at that Super Show, because I knew I wanted to do some work to the bike, and I at the time knew what I wanted to do, so I was chatting with Dan, and it was originally going to be put a cam in it, and I was waiting on an exhaust from Fab 28, and I was pretty much going to leave it at that. And it turns out I'm a real easy sell because you're talking to Dan about it, and it very quickly spiraled into the build series that we put out, that we filmed. We decided to go with, again, the 128, and reason being is we had already had our trip across the US plan, and I knew I was doing it on this bike. So I didn't want to do a build that was going to get me into some trouble, and what I mean by that is just not be reliable or be guzzling gas, things like that. So this build was done with the understanding that I need to be able to ride really long distances and do it efficiently. So that's kind of how that started.
Yeah, so I remember the first episode of that series, we were in the warehouse. You just got your bike back from Blackridge.
Right.
They did the bars.
That's right. So for like 10 minutes, I had forward controls on this thing.
That's right. That's right. They did the bars and forward controls, and you sat on it and you were like, no.
I just thought, and it's so silly, man. I thought of this because I'm like, I'm going to do a longer trip on it. Maybe I want forwards on it because, again, I'm taller. We always say that. Sat on that thing, and I was like, nope, we're going right back to mids. Yep. And I ended up going with the OG mini floorboards.
That's right.
Those were sick.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a good decision. I had a few options with parts, and I kind of just at the end of the day, after we ran through everything, all the options, I just left it to Dan to pick what he thought was best, including the cam. At some certain points, I wanted one cam over another, and at certain points, Dan was going to pick one cam over another, and ultimately we settled on the SNS 540 cam.
That's right.
I'm super happy with it. But yeah, just Dan picked every, Dan from Champion, not this Dan, picked every little piece to
I picked it all.
We did. Yeah.
It's my bike now. And then I think the next episode we shot in that series was the dyno day, when we went in and watched Dan dyno tune your bike, and that was actually the first time you saw your bike all done. The build was done.
Yeah. First time I heard my bike.
Just setting off alarms.
Yeah, it was amazing.
In the dyno room, it was like setting off alarms.
That was so cool. You have to admit, when your bike sounds mean, it puts a bit of a smile on your face, right? It's not what it's all about, but it's still satisfying.
It's a good sounding bike with the cam and the pipe combo. This thing sounds mean.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly sound. But yeah, that was the next one, was the dyno day, and that dyno, and I'm sure a lot of people know it, dynoing your bike takes a long time to do. We were there all day, like from when they opened we had to leave at like, I swear to God, it was like 5 p.m. or something, and he was still going through it. And the bike ran out of gas, and I had to walk down the road, pick up or get a jerry can of gas. Yeah, I still wasn't done doing it, but it was fun watching it, and because I'm not going to pretend I know anything about it. But just watching the numbers slowly climb, watching how he was paying attention to everything, it was really cool to see. He ultimately, he was obviously trying to get big numbers, but that's not all he was focused on.
No, he wanted to make this thing smooth.
Yeah, he needed to make sure this thing ran properly, not too rich, not too lean. And I learned a lot about dyno tuning in that video that we filmed, and kind of in between then, like that whole period of time.
That whole series. And then
Dan was really open about talking about that with us. So that was really cool.
And then the final episode of that whole series was titled The Truth of Dyno Tuning, I think it was called.
Was that the final one?
Yeah. That was when you picked it up and we rode home. My bike was there too. And
right, because you had, what did you have?
I had a paint job done.
Right.
Not a Champion, but I had our buddy Sean painted my bike and had all the tins brought back there. I had my 2-into-1 put in.
Yeah, you have the Trask.
Trask 2-into-1, and I did my Baja design lights, and then I did the Olam's suspension, and then maybe a few other things.
Yeah.
But
so we picked them up at the same time,
right? Picked them up at the same time, and then we actually shot a little segment with Dan talking about dyno tuning, and we kind of opened up a can of worms with that one because you hear a lot of different numbers being thrown out about horsepower. Is it to the wheel? Is it to the crank?
Yeah.
A lot of guys like to talk about to the crank horsepower, which is going to get you a different number than to the wheel. So we learned a lot from Dan, and that episode is what really kind of blew up our channel. Yeah, it's kind of like that was the start of our channel being like, oh, we actually we can do it.
True.
YouTubers now, whatever. You know what I mean? Like we were like, oh, sick.
That was the first time.
18,000 views on it.
It was crazy, and obviously like we didn't know that would happen. That really was, you're right, the video that like made us really kind of take it seriously.
Yeah.
And man, there was a lot of comments about the dyno numbers and all this stuff, but it was a lot of fun seeing that and there being a conversation about it, and that just, for us, made us want to do it more. But that, and also, that wasn't on that vlog, I don't believe, that ride home was real fun.
We got some of it.
Did we get it?
Yeah. Let's get some of that now.
Oh, we did.
We got some shots from there, but
I couldn't open it up.
No, and there's someone in the comments being like, these guys don't know how to ride or
right,
something.
Yeah, it's our first time on a bike or whatever. Yeah. Oh, I remember I couldn't open it up, but man, I could feel how torquey this bike is. So torquey.
Yeah.
I could just feel that. It was.
Do you remember the horsepower numbers you got?
The horsepower is in like the 120 range, and the torque is in like the 130 something range. To the wheel. Now, and again, I'm sure there's people that have higher numbers out there. Of course there is. Dan might, from Champion, might not totally agree with it, but there's people that have higher numbers with just a cam in it as opposed to this build. But the thing is this bike is tuned a specific way. This bike can get bigger numbers. And that was made very clear by Dan. It's like, you can get bigger numbers, it's just not gonna run well. It's just gonna drink gas. That's one of the things. And again, I don't want to be doing that. And so the whole point of that was that it has a lot of power, it's really torquey, but it's really reliable. And that for me is still the biggest thing. I think maybe down the road I might do a little more to it, but always with the intention of making sure it's reliable. And it's frankly tuned correctly. Not just tuned for numbers, but tuned to ride.
It's smooth.
Yeah. But anyways, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
So after that series, I know we shot a few different little vlogs around the city. We went to Niagara Falls, and that was a fun little vlog.
Was that in between?
Yeah, that was in between the next series we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But we did we went and got burgers with Pat. We did like a bike night, like the first bike night.
Right.
We did Niagara Falls, which was I think a fun kind of episode to do.
Yeah, that was fun.
Because Niagara Falls from us is like an hour and a half to get there.
Yeah, I would say so. It's cool. It's real, like, especially where we rode to. That one street we ride down to. What's it called? Clifton Hill.
Super tacky.
Oh yeah, but it's a lot of fun.
Stopped at the strip club. Outside the strip club.
Actually, I remember that's when I learned how hot my exhaust gets, is when we were on Clifton Hill.
It was a hot day too.
Oh, it was so hot. And then there was it's Clifton Hill is literally a hill, and we were going down it, but we were in all this traffic. And again, as a reminder, you can't lane split here. So we're stuck, and I had my leg just on the ground, and I just felt the burning slowly started and quickly just accelerated so fast. My leg wasn't even touching the exhaust. No heat shield.
No heat shields on
But
this thing.
man, it was cool. I don't care. I'm not putting heat shields on.
Yeah.
But
and after that, we did our Roll the Bones trip, this is the third time we've done it. Last year was our third time ever doing Roll the Bones. So that's a vintage chopper show that's in Montreal, and we like to ride out every year.
Yeah.
So, and it seems to grow every year.
it's a good opener for us.
Yeah, we look at it as like the spring opener, the first big trip we do out of the city, like the first overnighter.
Yeah, instead of just day tripping, it's our first big one. Gets you ready for the season almost, you know?
Yeah. Because you're like, I don't know how far Montreal is, but we take the scenic
We make it
route.
far. we turn that into a long
Takes all
distance
day.
ride. Yeah.
It takes all day, and that's like, you're sore after that one because we haven't been riding
I know.
for 6 months. So that's
That was a really fun ride, and that was again our first big ride of the season, my first big ride on this bike. So I was really amped to do it this year.
Dude.
Just wanted to get into it.
Yeah. So we take to get out of the city, we take a toll road, which is no traffic on.
Yeah.
And you can rip on that.
Yeah, you sure
You definitely did rip on that thing.
I figured out what the motor could do.
Yeah, and you had a little race with a shovel head.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we had the El
funny.
Diablo, my Road Glide, Pat's Dyna, Jake's Sportster, and then we had the shovel.
Yeah.
And the shovel was keeping up.
And shout out to our boy Ty for that one, man. He kept up that whole time. I kept having to check. I would check in with Dan because we have comms. So if I was in the front, I would check in with Dan to make sure to check and see if Ty was too far back. And every time he's like, no, he's good. He's right there with us.
No speedometer.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I needed to slow down, speed up, anything, right?
And we were cooking.
I was looking.
We were doing.
You get away from you sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you don't feel like you're going that fast sometimes when you are.
No.
But no, he stayed up, man.
That was a fun trip.
Yeah,
And, we had a little Airbnb with the crew, and we got there at a pretty decent time.
Yeah, still
in the
daylight.
past, we got there and it was dark, but we actually got there at a decent time, which I was surprised about with rolling with a shovel. I was like, we're gonna break down. I was like, oh, sick! It's gonna be cool content for the vlog. Breakdown.
Yeah.
The only funny thing that happened on that part was I dropped the GoPro on the freeway.
Oh, right, you did. And then Jake ran over it. Yeah. You didn't it? So it fell off, we were spread out over 3 lanes, because this is when we were still on that toll road where there's no other traffic. So I think you were on the left side, I was in the middle, and Jake was beside me. So when it dropped, it went across the front of my bike, and then Jake rolled over, because he was just behind me.
The next day we went to the show, it's a great show. I think it's one of the best shows in Canada for choppers.
It's just a good vibe. I honestly think that's part of it.
Yeah, and Montreal, everyone there is super friendly.
Yeah.
Super nice, and our boys were in the show too.
Yeah, they were.
Pops Garage. Was there anyone else that we knew that was in the show?
Ty was in it. Tyler was in it.
Ty as well.
But remember Tyler's bike? It was Ty's bike was just leaking oil all over the floor.
That's right.
And I remember going up and telling him, I was like, hey dude, your bike's leaking, and it's in the show. And he looks, so he's like, oh yeah, it is. And then just carries on with what he's doing. He just doesn't care. So I think at some point somebody took, I don't know if it was him or somebody just got brown paper towel and stuck it on the ground underneath it. So you have all these some of them pretty good show bikes, you know what I mean? In all different ranges from real fancy builds to a little bit more minimalistic. And then you got ties.
Yeah.
Just oil leaking
Just
everywhere. There's brown paper towel underneath it. And that's his vibe, man. He loves that.
But no, that's a great show. And unfortunately, the weather wasn't great, so the whole thing was inside. Usually it's, the bikes are inside.
Yeah.
And then all the vendors are outside. So that's usually a fun hang outside, but it's always super hot. I'm looking forward to this year with EasyCo being there. Those guys are awesome. They have awesome. They're gonna have knuckleheads there.
That'll be my first time meeting them.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't able to make it on that last trip.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that coming. When is Roll Alone? May?
It's in May. It's end of May, I want to say.
But those vlogs will be good with those guys.
Yeah. One thing that's worth talking about that wasn't even on the vlog during that trip is the ride home. So we ended up splitting. Some people wanted to stay longer. For example, me, my partner, and Jake, we're gonna just head back to the city. You and Pat, we're gonna maybe spend an extra day and take a longer route home.
Yeah.
And man, did stuff change, because we got caught in nasty rain, and for at least on mine, it was terrible rain, and I was a little hungover, but I was feeling good. I mean, we had a real fun night the night before.
That's
but I was feeling
there's a bit
good,
of
right?
that.
I was feeling. But you get on your bike, it all clears up. You feel good.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's right. We split up. You guys went, and me and Pat were gonna like go to Ottawa and do something. And then you guys, I think, text me, and you were like, "Oh, we're soaking wet," and we were like, "What?" Because you guys were up north.
Yeah.
We were down.
Yeah.
So we didn't get hit with any rain. And then me and Pat threw our rain gear on right away.
yeah.
And you guys said you were already soaked.
Oh yeah, and you know what? At the last minute when I was packing to go to Montreal, I took my rain gear out. Man, I could have used it.
Yeah.
But so we ended up staying in this town, our city, Kingston, the three of us. And then you guys happened to be in the area as we were getting, because we had to head south. So we were
already down south.
Yeah. But so we met up with you for a little bit, and then Dan and Pat get home that day
We
instead of
decided to
taking
go
the
home.
extra day.
We were like, oh, whatever. We're close enough. Let's just
We
go
were
home.
drenched. We decided to just get a good night's sleep, like get some dinner, get a good night's sleep.
Yeah,
and the next day, when I get up, we go to get a coffee, and I just like step off a curb weird. I kind of slip off a curb, and I throw my back out.
That's
I
right.
completely threw my back out.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I had to go. I went to a pharmacy, got a back brace, and did my stretches, all these things, and then had to ride the rest of the way home. It was maybe only like 3 hours, but when you have somebody on the back of your bike,
especially when you had no sissy bar either.
and I had a sissy bar that was like this big. It didn't do anything.
No.
And poor Ariel was, she was a trooper, but like that was not a comfortable ride for her. My back was killing me, and we had to rip the freeway home the whole way.
Yeah.
And Jake just stayed up with me. Jake's great to ride with, and I've said this. He knows I said this, but he's just patient. Just when I was feeling good minutes, I'd speed up a little bit. When my back was starting to act up, I'd kind of like go at a chill speed and then pull over for a bit. And man, that wasn't on the vlog, but that was an experience getting home that time.